Let me tell you something real. Most of the weight you're carrying right now isn't coming from your responsibilities. It's coming from the people you've allowed to live in your mind rent-free. You replay their words. You overthink their actions. You search for meaning in things that were never meant to guide your path in the first place. Life moves forward, but overthinking others keeps you stuck in yesterday. Today, I want to talk about releasing yourself from the prison of people's opinions, expectations, and energy. Because when you stop thinking too much about anyone, you finally start thinking clearly about yourself. This talk is built around 5 key principles, 5 truths that will help you reclaim your peace, your confidence, and your direction. Most people live their whole life carrying weight that was never theirs to carry. They wake up thinking about what someone else might say, might think, might whisper, might assume, and because of that, they never fully step into who they're meant to be. But the truth is, you're giving the world way too much credit. You're acting like everybody's focused on you when in reality they're barely thinking about you at all. One of the biggest lessons you'll ever learn is this: people think about you far less than you believe. They're not studying you the way you think. They're not analyzing every word or every move. Most people are too wrapped up in their own storms to even notice yours. Think about the last time you saw someone make a small mistake in public. Maybe they tripped on the sidewalk or spilled something on themselves or said the wrong word in front of everyone. You noticed it, sure, but only for a moment. 5 seconds later, your mind was somewhere else, moving on with your own life. But that person, they might go home and replay that same moment over and over again, embarrassed, overthinking, wishing they could take it back. That's how we all operate when we put too much importance on other people's perception. We create stories in our head about how the world sees us, and most of those stories are fiction. There's a term for this in psychology called the spotlight effect. It means we believe we're standing under a bright light, being looked at, evaluated, judged, criticized far more than reality. But nobody's carrying your mistakes that long. Nobody's replaying your flaws the way you are. Most folks barely see their own reflection clearly, let alone yours. They're dealing with anxiety, debt, heartbreak, stress, family problems, insecurity, pressure, uncertainty. They're trying to survive their own life, not analyze yours. And once you fully understand this, once it clicks that you don't need to perform for anybody, life suddenly becomes much lighter. You start moving differently when you stop letting imaginary eyes dictate your steps. You stop playing small, trying to avoid attention. You stop apologizing for wanting more. You stop walking around like you're being graded. You start living. You start breathing. You start showing up like someone who's actually free. The truth is, most of the fear you carry was handed to you by people who don't even know where they're going themselves. Someone made a comment. Someone laughed at you once. Someone doubted you. Someone said you weren't enough. But their words weren't about you. They were about them. Their limits, their insecurities, their lack of vision. And you took it personally. You put it in your pocket and carried it around like it was truth. But if those same people woke up tomorrow with all your responsibilities, all your dreams, all your pressure, all your challenges, they couldn't walk 5 steps in your shoes. Yet you let them shape the way you see yourself. You ever sit in a room and feel like people are judging you, only to realize later that no one remembers what you said, what you wore, or where you sat? You ever stress for hours about how a message sounded, only to have the other person barely notice the tone? You ever worry all day about someone's opinion, then find out they weren't thinking about you at all? This happens because your mind amplifies everything. Your brain is wired for survival, not confidence. It scans for danger, even when there isn't any. It imagines worst-case scenarios. It convinces you the world is paying attention because it's trying to protect you from embarrassment. But most of the threats you think exist are illusions, shadows, smoke. And the moment you stop feeding that fear, you take a step closer to real freedom. I've seen people waste their potential because they're scared of being misunderstood, scared of being talked about, scared of being judged for trying something new. They rather stay invisible than take the risk of being seen. But greatness doesn't come from hiding. Progress doesn't come from worrying about who's watching. You only break through when you stop caring about the crowd and start caring about yourself. Think about children. They dance without rhythm, laugh without worrying how it sounds, speak without filtering every word. They live free because nobody taught them to fear judgment yet. But somewhere along the line, we absorb too many opinions, too many side eyes, too many comments, and we start shrinking. We start living like we owe everyone an explanation. We start tiptoeing through life, trying not to offend anyone, trying not to be too loud, too bold, too different. But the world has never rewarded people who played it safe. If you look at the people who changed their lives, who built something meaningful, who rose from nothing, they weren't the ones trying to please everybody. They weren't the ones asking permission. They weren't the ones scared of making a mistake in front of someone who doesn't pay their bills or live their life. They understood early that attention is temporary, but regret lasts forever. And regretting your own potential is one of the heaviest pains a person can carry. Let me give you something to think about. Years ago, I watched a young guy at a gym. He was insecure, nervous, barely touched a waist because he was convinced everyone was watching him. He looked around constantly, making sure nobody was looking before lifting. An older man walked up to him one day and said, "Son, everybody in here is too busy thinking about how they look to notice you." And that stuck with him. A few weeks later, he wasn't scanning the room anymore. He was focused, committed, improving. All it took was understanding that the judgment he feared wasn't real. You can apply that to almost anything: your career, your dreams, your relationships, your goals, your appearance, your decisions. If you continue living like the world is analyzing you, you'll keep living below your capabilities. But if you realize the world is mostly focused on itself, you'll start taking risks that change your future. Life becomes lighter when you stop imagining critics that don't exist. You move freer when you stop carrying people who were never meant to be on your shoulders. You stop worrying about background noise and start hearing your own voice again. And that voice, your voice, is the one that's supposed to guide you. When you finally understand that most people aren't thinking about you, you stop overthinking yourself. You start showing up with confidence instead of fear. You start giving yourself permission to grow. You start realizing that the only person who has to think about you deeply is you. And once that truth settles into your spirit, you'll live with the freedom most people never experience. You ever notice how the people who stay stuck in their head are the same ones who stay stuck in life? They move like they've got weights on their ankles, not because they don't have talent, not because they don't have dreams, but because they keep wasting their energy on the wrong things. They're replaying conversations that don't matter, analyzing expressions that meant nothing, trying to decode messages that weren't that deep in the first place. They get caught up thinking about what someone else said, what someone else didn't say, how someone else acted, or what they might possibly be thinking. And the sad part is, none of that overthinking ever puts food on their table, money in their pocket, or value in their life. It just drains them, slow and silent. When you think too much about someone else, you're pouring energy into a place that will never give you anything back. It's like trying to water a dead plant. You can keep pouring, but nothing will grow. Your mind is the engine that drives everything in your life, but if you let it idle on the wrong thoughts, you're burning fuel without moving an inch. Energy is currency. And every time you overthink people, every time you worry about their opinions, every time you let someone's vibe throw you off your own, you're spending mental money on something that gives you zero return. Imagine a business owner who spends his whole day checking what his competitors are doing. He's refreshing their social media, tracking their pricing, watching their moves, comparing himself to their progress. He's so locked into someone else's lane that he forgets to build in his own. Meanwhile, his shop is still the same, his product's still the same, his progress still the same, because all of his energy went outward instead of inward. That's exactly what happens when you obsess over people. You become a spectator in your own life. You stop building, you stop growing, you stop creating, you stop moving. You're so worried about them that you forget about you. Growth requires focus. And focus isn't some cute Instagram quote. It's discipline. It's a decision. It's you telling yourself, I'm not giving my power away today. But you can't have focus without peace. And peace starts with letting go of thoughts that don't serve you. You don't need to analyze why someone didn't text back. You don't need to decode every tone or voice. You don't need to replay every moment to figure out if you said the right thing. The truth is, if it doesn't feed your purpose, it's empty calories for the mind. But we're human. We've all fallen into that trap. There was a time in my life when I was overthinking people so much that I didn't realize my own life was on pause. I spent hours wondering if someone respected me, if someone valued me, if someone was being real or fake. I let their actions become my distractions, and distractions are dangerous. They don't just slow you down, they reroute your entire journey. You could lose years to a thought pattern that should have never had 5 minutes of your attention. Sometimes it's not even about love or friendship or relationships. Sometimes it's about pride. Sometimes it's about ego. Sometimes it's about wanting closure, wanting clarity, wanting answers you think you deserve. But here's the truth you learn with time. You don't need closure from anyone to grow. You don't need clarity from people who are confused themselves. You don't need answers from someone who isn't capable of giving you truth. What you need is your focus back. What you need is your peace back. What you need is your energy back. I've met people who had million-dollar ideas, real talent, real potential, but they never moved forward because they were too busy thinking about people who did nothing for them. They would say, what if they think I'm not good enough? Or what if they don't support me? Or what if they laugh? And every time they doubted themselves because of someone else, another opportunity slipped right by. They were like a runner staring into the stands instead of looking at the finish line. You can't run your race like that. You'll trip every time. Overthinking others is like letting people live in your head without paying rent. They take up space that was meant for your ideas, your plans, your creativity, your growth. And the crazy part is, half the time the people you're thinking about aren't even thinking about you. They're living their life. They're sleeping fine at night. They're laughing, working, scrolling, eating, moving on. To them, nothing is happening. Meanwhile, you're in your room fighting a mental storm they never intended to create. When you finally step back and look at it, you'll realize how much of your life you've been giving away. You've been spending hours thinking about someone who didn't spend a minute thinking about you. And that realization hits hard, but it's also freeing. Because the moment you understand how much energy you've wasted, you start protecting your energy with everything you've got. Picture your mind like a garden. Every thought is a seed. When you think about other people too much, especially in negative or obsessive ways, you're planting weeds. Those weeds spread, they choke out your creativity, they choke out your motivation, they choke out your peace. But when you start pulling those weeds and planting thoughts that actually help you, thoughts about your goals, your purpose, your next step, your whole inner landscape changes. You start growing again. Focus is a form of self-respect. It's saying, my dreams matter more than anyone's opinions. My future matters more than replaying the past. My energy is mine. And I'm not wasting it on things that don't elevate me. And once you adopt that mindset, you start moving differently. You don't react to everything. You don't chase explanations. You don't seek validation. You stop needing people to choose you because you've finally chosen yourself. Letting go of overthinking doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop harming yourself with thoughts that go nowhere. You stop building prisons inside your mind. You stop creating mountains out of things that were never meant to be obstacles. You step out of your own way. When you stop letting other people's actions dictate your emotions, you take your power back. When you stop analyzing every detail of someone else's behavior, you free up mental space to build your life. You start putting your energy into things that matter. Your growth, your health, your dreams, your moves, your evolution. And you realize the truth. The moment you stop overthinking others, you accelerate your own growth. You move faster. You think clearer. You rise higher. Because your energy finally starts working for you, not against you. Listen, there comes a point in life when you finally understand that the way people treat you has very little to do with you and almost everything to do with them. When someone disrespects you, lies to you, switches up on you, or walks away like you meant nothing, it cuts deep. But that cut isn't meant to tell you that you're worthless. It's meant to show you the truth about who they are. Most people don't even realize how much of their behavior is rooted in their own wounds, their own fears, their own confusion. Yet somehow we take their actions and turn them into stories about our value. We ask ourselves, what did I do wrong? When the real question should be, what kind of pain are they carrying that makes them act like that? We ask, why wasn't I enough? When the truth is, they aren't even enough for themselves. We ask, why didn't they treat me better? Without understanding that someone who doesn't treat their own soul with respect can't give respect away. You can't pour clean water from a dirty cup, and you can't expect someone to show you a version of themselves they haven't even developed yet. People will project their inner world onto you without even thinking. A person full of peace spreads peace effortlessly. You can feel it in their presence, in their words, in the way they move through life, without trying to control or harm anyone. Their energy is calm because they've done the work. But a person full of chaos, they don't have to try either. Their chaos spills into every room they walk into. They argue because conflict lives inside of them. They judge because they judge themselves. They hurt because they're hurting. And they switch up because they've never had stability inside their own spirit. We take these things personally because we care, because we show up with real intentions, real emotions, real effort. But you have to learn that someone's inability to match your heart has nothing to do with the value of your heart. It just means you were given from a place they weren't capable of giving from. Some people don't even know how to receive love properly, so everything you give feels either overwhelming or threatening. Some don't know how to handle loyalty because they've never seen it modeled. Some don't know how to stay because every environment they grew up in taught them to run. When you stop thinking too much about their behavior, you start seeing things with clarity. You begin to understand that their choices were shaped by experiences you never lived. Their reactions were formed by wounds you didn't cause. Their distance had roots in places you never visited, and their silence wasn't because you weren't worth talking to. It was because they couldn't handle the weight of honesty. There's a moment in life that hits you hard, the realization that some people were never giving you the version of themselves they gave to others. They were giving you the version of themselves they were capable of at that stage in their journey. That doesn't excuse the pain, but it explains the pattern. A traumatized person will move in traumatized ways. A fearful person will make fear-driven decisions. Someone who's never been loved right will mishandle love when it finally shows up. And if you don't understand this, you'll keep blaming yourself for things that had nothing to do with you. You'll start shrinking your personality, thinking maybe you were too much, when in reality, someone who is secure would have appreciated exactly who you are. You'll start lowering your standards, thinking maybe you expected too much, when in reality, someone with integrity would have met you where you stood. You'll start playing small, thinking maybe you should be less, when the truth is, the right people will never ask you to dim your light. It takes emotional maturity to understand that the actions of others are reflections, not definitions. They reflect their character, their emotional history, their upbringing, their fears, but they do not define your value. Your worth isn't determined by who stays or who leaves. Your worth doesn't disappear because someone didn't recognize it. Diamonds don't become less valuable because someone walked past them without noticing. Rare things remain rare, whether they are honored or ignored. When someone lies to you, remember, honesty is a habit. If they don't practice it with themselves, they won't magically practice it with you. When someone disrespects you, remember, respect starts in the mirror. If they lack it there, you won't find it in their behavior. When someone switches up on you, remember, consistency comes from stability. If they've never built it internally, they can't offer it externally. When someone walks away, let them. People who belong in your life don't leave confused. They leave with clarity and they come back with intention, or they stay with commitment. You can't save people from themselves. You can't love them into healing. You can't hold them together when they're choosing to fall apart. What you can do is stop blaming yourself. Because once you stop personalizing their behavior, you stop carrying a weight that was never meant for your shoulders. Your peace comes back, your confidence rises, your mind becomes clear, your heart becomes lighter. You start to see the situation for what it truly was, a reflection of where they were in life, not who you are as a person. The moment you stop overthinking people, their actions lose power over you. The disrespect no longer feels like a wound, it becomes information. The lies no longer break you, they reveal the truth about their character. The distance no longer scares you, it confirms who was really meant to walk with you. The switch up no longer shakes you, it just shows you their foundation wasn't solid to begin with. And all of this frees you. You stop chasing explanations because you realize their behavior explained itself. You stop trying to fix people who never asked for healing. You stop internalizing what they did and you start focusing on what you deserve. You step back into your worth. You step back into your strength. You step back into your life with clarity. Because the truth is simple, their actions reflected them, not you. And the moment you understand that fully, you walk with a different kind of power. One that can't be shaken by anyone else's brokenness. Your mind is your home, and too many people treat it like a hallway anybody can track dirt through. You let people come in with their messy energy, their unresolved issues, their negativity, their doubts, and before you know it, your mental space feels cluttered and heavy. But this place, your mind, is the one place you should protect more fiercely than anything else. What lives in your head shapes how you feel, how you move, and how you show up in the world. And when you stop thinking so much about people who don't deserve that space, you start realizing how much energy you've been giving away without noticing. Every thought you allow into your mind shapes your emotions. That's why you can be having a peaceful day, then one memory about someone who hurt you flips the whole mood. Or you hear someone's name and suddenly your energy drops. If someone drains you even when they're not standing in the same room, that's a sign you've let them take up too much mental real estate. You've given them keys to a door they never earned. Protecting your energy isn't always about cutting people off. Cutting someone off is the physical part. But guarding your mental door, that's the spiritual part. That's the emotional discipline. You can walk away from someone physically and still carry them mentally for years. You can block a number and still replay conversations. You can stop talking to someone and still feel them pulling on your spirit. That's why the real work isn't deleting people, it's detaching from thoughts that drain you. Your mind is powerful. It can build you or break you. And the more you allow people's actions, opinions, or presence to live in your thoughts, the more power you transfer to them. Most people don't realize how much energy they're losing every day to unnecessary mental noise. Worrying about someone's motives, overanalyzing someone's tone, replaying arguments that ended months ago, anticipating reactions that might never happen. All that thinking wears you down like carrying invisible weights. Think of your mind like a phone battery. You start the day on 100%, but some people can drain you to 2% before you've even had breakfast. Just a single interaction or a single memory of them can pull your energy all the way down. You feel tired, irritated, mentally exhausted. That's not coincidence. That's energy leakage.